Temur sat by a small campfire on an endless stretch of steppe, his dark hair slightly tousled from hours spent riding under the relentless Mongol sun. The fire crackled and popped against the backdrop of thousands upon thousands of stars that twinkled above him like distant lanterns in the heavens. He felt a gentle breeze carry whispered secrets through the grass, which danced to an unseen rhythm only understood by those who dwelled here amongst nature's quiet majesty. The air was heavy with smoke and warmth as Temur looked towards his companions gathered around him. They were fellow horsemen from various tribes whose eyes reflected both skepticism and a growing sense of unity under the banner that Genghis Khan had begun to forge amongst them all. As he listened, their stories melded into one tales of personal struggle against other Khanates' armies now seeming like distant echoes in comparison to the unanimous vision presented by their new leader, a vast empire where every tribe could share its strengths and culture without fear or division. Temur closed his eyes, letting Genghis Khan's latest message seep into him before he opened them again with renewed purpose shining in his dark gazer vision of conquest that promised not only wealth but also the chance to rule freely under one banner, a promise made even more resonant by Timur's own personal yearning for an end to subjugation. He remembered how Genghis Khan had inspired this unity before. It wasn't just about taking land or increasing power, it was redefining the very way of life on these rolling hills and beyond into something greater, where all could prosper under a single emperor's guidance without losing their heritage. The steppe stretched out in front as far as Temur dared to look. It had been his playground since birth, but now seemed like an invitation for change that he was compelled to accept. With the next day's light approaching, a sense of calm settled upon him despite knowing tomorrow would challenge their resolve with more than just another battle. It meant building something new from old ways and bringing disparate tribes together under one sky. As Temur gazed once again at the unending stars above them all asleep in blankets far below, he felt his heart swell not only for personal growth but also a silent promise that tomorrow's dawn would herald an era of unity on this vast steppe, and beyond its horizon an empire where horsemen like Temur could ride forth proudly into the mornings yet to come. As he gathered his thoughts, letting them drift away with smoke tendrils rising from beneath embers that glowed steadily in defiance of night's return, a comforting quietude wrapped around him as if time itself took force, a precious gift for the soul seeking rest before tomorrow's trials. Temur knew he was about to become part of something monumental. His spirit stirred with anticipation and fear intermingled like wind through grasses at dawn, yet a deeper understanding blossomed within him as tales of Genghis Khan's wisdom flowed from lips that had tasted the same fire. The words were not just about power or conquest, they carried echoes of justice, freedom for all under one rule, where no single tribe would dictate another's fate on these very plains they shared together now and in future days to come. Temur understood this was more than a chance at personal glory. It was an opportunity to shape the lives around him with integrity that had been missing from his world, ensuring prosperity without oppression for generations yet unborn who would hear of these times when tales were told beneath firelight and stars above, a legacy etched not just in stone, but also on heartbeats across steppe lands. With a final glance at the constellation that had guided many before him, Temur felt his spirit align with those ancient beings now joined by this new celestial force to guide them all forward into an era where Mongol strength would weave together tribes once divided and disparate threads of life across these boundless plains. And as the fire slowly ebbed away, he whispered a silent prayer for wisdom in their leader Genghis Khan, a man whose name now seemed destined to be spoken with reverence long after his time among them had passed into history's embrace. An empire born from unity and vision that would stand as tall against the sands of time. As Temur settled onto a cool, leather-bound horse blanket beside him under the watchful eyes of stars above, he allowed himself to dream of possibilities or future where his people. Temur's mind drifted further into contemplation as he lay beneath a tapestry of twinkling stars, each point in that celestial canopy seeming to echo his thoughts and intentions back at him with silent approval. As the cool night breeze whispered through the grasses around them, carrying tales from distant lands now united under one sky, he found comfort knowing their shared dreams would become reality on small step towards an epoch that promised a blend of harmony and strength in equal measure. Chapter 2. A pact amongst stars. The following morning broke with the sun's gentle caress upon his face, awakening him from the realm where dreams intermingle freely with waking thoughts in everyday occurrence for Temur, since he had taken to pondering under starlight. Today held promise. Today was a day of reckoning between ambition and principle, as whispers carried on warm wings spoke volumes about Genghis Khan's impending journey across the steppes, one that would unify tribes in ways hitherto unfathomed by any living soul within those vast expanses. Amidst his companions lay a sense of solemn duty or collective responsibility to ensure their leader's vision forged ahead unhindered not just through might, but also with the wisdom and integrity he so cherished in others, including Temur himself. The tribe's past was marred by strife. Divided, they had fared poorly against invaders who sought dominion rather than understanding, but tonight, under a blanket of stars that seemed to pulse with shared aspirations for peaceful prosperity, promised an enduring legacy beyond mere conquests and territories. As Temur set out on his journey, the echoes of their ancestors' chants resounded within him, songs woven into existence by those who had lived before them, as spiritual tapestry embroidered with threads both tender and firm that bound them all to this sacred land beneath endless skies. He felt a reverence for these customs, understanding they were not just the fabric of their past, but also blueprints for future unity in Mongol strength, without oppression's shadow casting its pallor upon others' lives. The steppes stretched out like an open sea before him as he rode further along ancient trails that had borne witness to countless footsteps, each imprint a testament to the resilience and enduring spirit of his peoplar lineage, marked by both tumultuous history and shining moments when tribes came together in solidars. Today's journey was an extension of those times. As Temur galloped through undulating hills crowned with azure skies, he carried within him the visions that would transform these lands into a harmonious realm where power served to uplift and not subjugate, a world envisioned by Genghis Khan himself. Temur paused for communion as daylight waned on an untouched plain, inviting him upon its hallowed earth with the promise of solace amidst burgeoning anticipation that thrummed through his veins like lifeblood, its sulphur bloodline steeped in tales told beneath star-flecked nights where firelight danced and legends came to life, molding destinies as surely as they were woven into the very fabric of their culture. Underneath, a canopy punctuated with silver constellations that had long guided nomads from one horizon and to another in search of greener pastures and unyielded horizons, Temur met faces both known and strange, a motley assembly drawn together by the singular dream that was about to unfold across these unfettered steppes. In this congregation lay a myriad potential allies whose hearts beat in synchronous hope for an age where Mongol might would not simply be wielded, but rather harnessed with unwavering resolve and moral fortitude, a force that respected all life, honored traditions of old without succumbing to the shackles they had once endured. As night descended like a curtain upon their gathering place beneath an indigo sky embroidered by twinkling luminaries above, Temur shared tales with his fellow stories that spoke not just of conquests and victorious battles, but also the quiet moments where courage was kindled in acts as simple yet profound as offering one's last morsel to a wounded animal or standing firm against deceit. These stories held power, for they served to remind all present why their leader's vision mattered. It transcended mere acquisition as Dorn's gentle fingers caressed the steppe horizon with hues of pink and gold. Temur awoke from his reverie not to battlefields, but beneath an alabaster tent made rich by threads spun under moonlit Skeezer fortress against solitude. His companions were likewise stirred into awakening as the first light filtered through their encampment's canvas walls, casting long shadows that danced with promises of adventure and camaraderie to come. Amidst this serene tableau, Temur stood at its heart, an emblem not solely forged by lineage, but sculpted from the very essence he had been taught, honor above selfish gain. As a child, his father recounted fables of their ancestors who roamed these lands as liberators and protectors, tales that molded Temur's own ambitions to lead not with an iron will, but one guided by the wisdom passed down through generations. The day had begun before first light, when they set forth from their encampment like a flock of migratory birds drawn together in purpose and spirit under Temur's commanding yet comforting presence, their beacon for those seeking direction as much as leadership itself. They traveled across the steppe that sprawled far beyond sight, each step upon its grassy expanse imbued with memories of ancestors who had once tread this same path, and dreamers like Temur daring to imagine a legacy transcending conquest's ephemeral glory. As midday approached, their journey brought them before the ancient ruins that whispering winds told tales of forgotten times, when nomadic tribes thrived upon these slopestones untouched by greed's insidious corrosion, and where respect for all living things was as integral to survival as sharp eyesight. Here Temur paused in contemplation beneath the sprawling branches that had watched over countless generations before him. His mind wandered through possibilities of what it meant to lead with virtues untarnished by worldly cravings for power and wealth, a leader whose heartbeat echoed louder than war drums, resonating in symphonies of empathy. As the sun claimed its zenith, they encountered a herd caught between their path and an encroaching storm on distant horizons. It was then that Temur's companions saw not strangers, but kin forged from necessity's hand, or chance to extend compassion beyond human kith. With deft command born of respect, they rallied together with the herders and their flock in a dance as delicate as spider silk against morning mist. All that glittered on these steps were not gold, but acts woven into life's tapestry through benevolent intent. Evenings found them sharing tales by firelight, voices melding with the crackling embers, light, kindred spirits in symphony, a harmony of experiences that transcended mere recounting to become living testaments etched on their soul's parchment. A shared history where each memory was as precious as jade nestled within earth's unyielded grasp. As nightfall ushered in its cloak upon the steppe, Temur and his companions found solace beneath twinkling constellations that had watched over these lands for eons of celestial canopy, where silver threads connected them to all who would come after on this vast expanse of earth. It was here, cradled by starlight's gentle caress upon their cheeks and the murmurous whispers of ancestral spirits, that Temur imparted wisdom not just from scroll or sage, but through actions as pure as snowflakes in a desert bloomer, leader whose heart mirrored integrity's purest form. And so, within these moments, beneath an indigo sky embroidered by twinkling luminaries above and the warmth of kinship that enveloped them like ancestral embrace, Temur's vision for their people took root. Her dream where Mongol might was harnessed not as a sword but as a shield to protect what they held dear. It became clear each had been drawn here by destiny's hand. The shared odyssey before dawn would etch itself upon this steppe, in stories of courage born from kind gestures and honor that transcended conquest's fleeting shadow or legacy, where Mongol spirit reigned as sovereign ruler. As night deepened into a velvet darkness punctuated with silver whispers among the Temur's voice seemed to dance with a gentle authority as he shared his visions of tomorrow under the stars that had never once shied from their duty since time immemorial, guiding travelers and souls alike across this sprawling steppe. His words painted futures where might was wielded not in violent bursts but through unities, Anwar's zero beeping strength, for future of Mongolian culture safeguarded by the very same resilience that had always been their ancestral armor against invading storms and greedy empires. As he spoke, his companions listened with rapt attention, tales weaving through generations, inked not only on parchment, but lived within each heartbeat of those present at this sacred congregation. Temur's conviction was such that it resonated beyond the immediacy of spoken words and into eternity itself, his every gesture a promise, his steadfast gaze upon them an affirmation they would not soon forget. The night continued to cradle their aspirations with its velvet embrace as Temur delved deeper into stories where Mongolian children learned respect for all living creatures and elders imparted wisdom that transcended the mundane, teaching about life's intricate web within which they were but one strand. He spoke of a future unburdened by fear, where art flourished as freely as song on their lips under vast skies, where every Mongol child would grow with eyes wide in wonderment at the world that awaited them beyond these rolling hills and grassy yurts. The companions found themselves caught between awe of Temur's eloquence and reflection upon his own journey, each acknowledging their personal threads woven into this shared tapestry, a connection as real to him now in the quiet hours away from daylight's glare when time seems suspended. They spoke little among themselves, but listened deeply. After all, what better way was there for hearts intertwined with Temur's own than through storytelling? As dawn approached and its first tentative light threatened to part the veil of night from their dream-spun revelries, they knew that these were not idle fantasies but seeds sown in earnest. It was understood amongst them young, bold with hearts, yet tempered by experience, seasoned warriors whose armor bore scars and medals alike as markers of battles both won and lost to fate's fickle hand that the path forward would honor their ancestors while forging anew. Within this circle lay Temur, not just a leader, but embodiment of balance between past wisdom and future hope. He who had learned from history's harsh lessons as much as its victories celebrated in song across these lands. And so they resolved to be stewards not only for the Mongols' heritage on this earthly plane, where wind caressed grasses into whispering histories, but also Beander's guardians of knowledge and tradition that might one day traverse even distant galaxies if humanity ever sought it out among stars unknown. In their unity under a sky soon to be painted, with hues too grand for the eye alone yet felt in every fibre, they recognized themselves as architects capable not merely of constructing edifices from stone and steel, but also craftsmanship that could mold hearts into instruments of peace and fellowshippers enduring as mountains. As night's cloak finally receded to reveal daybreak's rosy fingers, the companions found comfort in knowing they were not alone on this journey. Their resolve was bolstered by shared belief that Mongol spirit could be a guiding light for humanity itself, a force neither conqueror nor subjugator, but one of harmony and respect. And Temur's words lingered, like the scent of juniper smoke carried on morning breezes. His vision not just an echo within their hearts, but also etched in constellations that had witnessed all human endeavor since time's beginning under this endless steppe sky. For as they arose to face a new day, each knew the story of Mongol might would be one for generations, or legend not bound by conquest's fleeting shadow, but illuminated in benevolence and cultural pride that could touch even celestial realms where humanity may roam. And with this understanding nestled securely within their souls, Temur's companions turned toward the rising sun as they prepared to greet it, a new chapter of Mongol spirit ready at dawn's doorstep for all who might walk these ancient steps in times, both near and distant, under its watchful gaze. As Temur and his companions stood together on the vast steppe that stretched beyond sight, they felt a profound sense of unity with every grain beneath their feet, or connection to something far greater than themselves. The wind whispered through the grasses as if it carried tales from across time, speaking directly into their hearts about the essence of Mongol spirit and how its influence could shape not only history, but also personal destinies entwined like threads in a tapestry woven by fate itself. Temur's voice was calm yet resonant beneath the twilight sky. His words painted images that danced before their icer vision, where Mongolian horsemen roamed free, not as conquerors, but as guardians of peace and cultural bearers across all lands they touched. It wasn't mere conquest he spoke of today or yesterday. It was about the legacy etched into every soul in his company that would carry forth this spirit, or harmony with nature and respect for fellow beings echoing through their actions, even as far back to when the first stars blinked awake. They began walking towards a modest campfire crackling softly amidst dried grasses arranged into geometric patterns by hands that had shaped this land since before memory itself took root in human minds, hands guided not only by necessity, but also reverence for the spirits they believed dwelled within every hill and valley. It was here, as darkness began to fade at their backs, where Temur shared stories of ancestors who found strength in adversity without losing sight of compassion or kinship with others, or balance that would be essential on this journey ahead. As the first light peeked over distant mountainsides and kissed the earth, awake to greet a new day, they prepared for what lay before them, an odyssey across continents where their actions could serve as living embodiments of Mongolian ethos, respecting all life forms while preserving cultural integrity. Temur emphasized that every decision made in this foreign land would ripple back to the homeland, influencing generations yet unborn who may look upon these steppes with eyes wide with wonder and respect, as they did now under a sky where night had been vanquished by dawn's bolden touch. They planned meetings at ancient sites touched only by whispered tales of olden glories where once might have stood Khans, their spirits watching over the realm in silent vigilance, and wisdom imparting strength to those who sought harmony within themselves as much as without it among people they may encounter. Temur's companions listened intently. Each shared story woven into the fabric of Mongolian history felt like a thread pulling them closer together, forming an unbreakable bond that no distance could sever nor time erode away from their joint purpose to be ambassadors for peace and understanding among nations diverse in tongue but not unlike one another under human experience's vast expanse. Their journey would take them through bustling markets where the sights, sounds, smells of spices blending with leather-bound manuscripts told tales as richly textured as the carpets beneath their feet. Each exchange a step in demonstrating Mongolian adaptability and cultural resilience. They would encounter scholars whose minds were gardens where knowledge bloomed like flowers, seeking to cultivate understanding that transcended borders drawn by human hands on parchment or stone, but invisible lines of connection among all who shared this common earth beneath the same endless sky over which they now stood united with purpose. In every village and city visited along their route, moments where Timur's companions would share aspects of Mongolian life, from nomadic traditions to tales of legendary ancestors whose deeds were carried forward in the collective memory like embers kept alive by water droplets that quenched flames. They spoke not only with pride, but also humility. Understanding their own culture's uniqueness did not equate superiority, nor should it blind them to learning and growing from others, as they too would share elements of themselves in this exchange or mutual enrichment, where both sides could find common ground on which friendships might flourish. As the sun climbed steadily towards its zenith, painting daylight upon a world still waking with vibrant life, Timur's companions felt their convictions solidify. They were not merely travelers, but participants in an act of cultural diplomacy that could sow seeds for lasting peace and respect among nations. Their journey was more than passage, it had become pilgrimage to touch souls with Mongol spirit, fostering kinship between worlds apart yet intrinsic. 059 Bly in Chapter 6 of Timur's journey through cultures and hearts, as twilight descended upon a town where rivers whispered histories beneath bridges archaic, with secrets long forgotten by time but not yet lost in memory. His companions found themselves enveloped within the warm embrace of an ancient market square. This was no ordinary exchange. This place hummed with life and stores, an amphitheater, where every face told a tale as diverse as the goods traded here were myriad like stars, scattered across night's expanse, each one beckoning to Timur's heartstrings in their unique way. The scent of spices carried on warm breezes blended with earthy musk and hints of sweet fruits. Sounds from the clinking coins spoke more eloquently than any tongue spoken here. It was a symphony composed by humanity itself, each note representing an ancestor's toil or triumph. Amidst this grand tapestry woven with threads golden like sun-kissed fields and vibrant as the most fiery of blooms that defied winter's chill in full splendor here amid summer warmth, Timur felt a kinship blossom within his soul's soil. His companions gathered round an elderly vendor whose eyes mirrored decades spent upon this very earth, eyes which had witnessed the ebb and flow of generations as if they were one with them all. Children at play, lovers stealing kisses beneath flickering lanterns, elders sharing wisdom that traveled through time like a river carving canyons deep into history's bedrock. The vendor spoke tales not just to entertain, but to educate, living bridge connecting past and present as the stories unfolded with warmth around their hearth of exchange, where understanding was nurtured gently, delicately by wisdom shared like water on parched lips in a desert's heat-waved sunset. Timur learned that this vendor's family had once tended to cans and yarluk, a role revered yet humble as it intertwined the livelihood of an entire clan with sustenance for many mouths atop rolling steps, where horses were not merely beasts but partners in survival. The stories unraveled narratives stitching together lineage and legacy, weaving threads invisible to outsiders who might only see past the surface sheen of material wealth that often masked deeper connections, or culture rich with tales as vast as the landscapes it spanned, where every grain was a testament to ancestral bond. As night's velvet curtain unfurled across skies painted in shades from fading amber to deep indigo, Timur's companions exchanged not just goods but embraces that spoke of shared humanity as they sat beneath the canopy where stars played hide and seek with clouds. They drank tea scented by firelight, or potion brewed in vessels older than some nations themselves, whispered to them tales from centuries past. Each sip a journey through eras when nomads roamed free under constellations that guided their paths like Celeste. 069 Bly navigated. Their travels led Timur and his companions next towards the outskirts, where whispers of forgotten tribes echoed in wind-riddled grasslands, remnants whose spirits danced beneath moonlit ski specters. that found solace as their stories, fed into eternal flames, kept alive through tales told to children who had not known anything else but a life harmonized with nature's rhythms. The air carried the essence of these lost souls, and Timur felt his heart swell in gratitude for this exchange or communion, where echoes from shadows past were heeded like sacred chants that fortified bonds between beings across time's expanse, as if they had always been walking side by side. With the first blush of dawn upon horizon's edge, Timur stood atop a hill overlooking his companions, gathered in an open circle, each face illuminated with reflections not just from rising sun, but shared purpose and understanding that transcended language barriers as they spoke truth to power. Their journey had been more than mere passage. It was now pilgrimage, where the soul's compass directed them towards unity, a kinship founded on respect for difference yet united in mutual admiration or fellowship of cultures converging like rivers into one oceanic heart pulsing with life's richness. As they descended from their vantage point to where the town waited its waking embrace beneath morning light, Timur took a deep breath as he looked out over his companions. Their silhouettes were etched against the sky, blending with hues of orange and pink that heralded sunrise's approach. As they descended from the hilltop together into the valley, where life buzzed in every crevice, where rivers met land and water kissed stone before parting ways once more on their journey to merge at sea, Timur felt a profound peace settle within his chest like dew upon morning petals. Their fellowship was an eclectic tapestry of souls from lands near and far, each thread woven with stories as unique as fingerprints yet bound by the common strand that love for one's own culture inspired reverence toward another's customs, beliefs, and ways. They had listened to tales of ancient civilizations where gods walked amongst mortals in majestic splendor or lingered beneath flowering trees like blossoms themselves tales, which were as much about understanding oneself through the mirroring pool that was shared history as they were teaching respect for diversity's vast spectrum. Today, their path led them to a village where time seemed suspended in amber, and every face bore witness not just of age, but stories untold, or perhaps too zero felt with heartstrings attached to the earth beneath one's feet, or place that promised lessons beyond simple conversation. The guide spoke first, her voice carrying across waters still kissed by dawn's early light, as she led them towards a gathering of elders who had seen centuries pass like seasons change around their firelit hearth. As they approached the circle, where wisdom seemed to flow freely and uninhibitedly from one earthen vessel to another, Timur felt his spirit dance alongside each shared memory, a vibrant chorus sung in a tongue that twined through generations like roots seeking sustenance deep within soil. The air was heavy with the scent of juniper incense, and stories unfolded not just as narratives, but rituals passed down to nourish souls, binding communities together across lifetime's expanse, where past mingled seamlessly and present's heartbeat like intertwined ribbons upon a loom. The village elders smiled at Timur with eyes that twinkled through the veil of years to reveal depth and understanding as profound as rivers cutting canyons into stone, a smile which spoke more than words could ever muster when discussing matters sacred or deeply personal. His voice was a melody played upon harp strings, notes resonant with history's heartbeat that echoed long after the final reverberation faded. Timur listened as tales of ancestral spirits guiding travelers through shadow-dappled forests where sunlight dared to intrude, or whispering secrets into ears eager enough to hear. Their wisdom was a beacon like stars piercing night's curtain, revealing paths hidden by doubt and the unknown. As he absorbed their law, each story felt as if it were his own. Timur's soul seemed not just part of this communion, but an integral thread within its vibrant weave, a shared humanity that transcended mere words to touch upon something primal, resonating with the essence of life itself. Their stories flowed like meandering streams converging into a mighty river where each droplet was unique in journey but together formed courses through valleys and over peaks as one, a reminder that while individual paths may diverge towards distant horizons, they all return to the ocean of shared existence. The elder spoke of times when humanity danced with nature's rhythms unencumbered by technology's heavy chains or fear. He painted pictures not just in words, but through invocations that summoned senses beyond sight and sound, the rumor of rain on dry earth, the roughness of bark against skin, flavors as complex as spices traded along ancient routes. In this place, where time seemed to fold upon itself like origami swans resting atop water's mirror surface, Temur found himself not just an observer, but a participant in reveries cast forth through storytellinger, living bridge between worlds across which knowledge and understanding flowed freely. As he listened, his heart became attuned to the ancient drumbeats that pulsed beneath spoken word. With every tale told by firelight's warm embrace came a step closer inward into himself, where past whispers from within like shadows play upon inner walls echoes of who Temur might become or have been. Their time together wove around the river's flow with stories. Temur said quietly, into a small woven pouch he held tightly a talisman against forgetting and an anchor to the present moment, where his journey felt most vital yet fleeting in time's grand scale. As night deepened, tales spilled from ancient lips that painted worlds within words. Stories of forgotten peoples who once stood tall beside mountains with wisdom-laden gazes turned toward horizons now shrouded by the advancing veil of civilization's reaches, where rivers nourished not just land but spirit, and every drop told a tale as distinctive to its source yet united in purpose. The elder spoke of temples that stood sentinel at river bends and crossroads. Their stones whispered secrets carried by the water's flow since times immemorial, when gods dwelt among men rather than watching them, where each journey was a pilgrimage to sacred banks for blessings or answers. Temur felt his essence blend with those of countless unseen travelers, from young warrior maidens who harnessed the river's might in dance and prayer to old sages whose very breath seemed woven from water vapor, condensed by their profound respect for life's interconnected threads. The elder spoke now with a voice that trembled like leaves before autumn winds. He recounted how those who lived so close to the heartbeat of nature understood its language, offerings made not just in food but sense and sounds, where every note was heard by more ears than could ever gather around an earthen drum. "The streams are our voices," Temur responded with a reverence that mirrored his own awakening realization, as each word flowed like river stones shaped over time, smooth on the surface but jagged within if one dared to look too closely and discover their origins beneath layers of moss. The elder shared stories where rivers were born in glaciers. Retreat, tales that began with icy silence before breaking forth into a symphony of ripples. They spoke of how the waters mirrored not just faces but souls' reflection was truth and transformation as constant companions upon their liquid paths. "It is here," he whispered, his breath misting in front of him like morning fog that settled over water's surface to cloak secrets within its depths, until they were called forth by the sun in touch or a fisherman casting lines into future and past entwined fates alike. Temur listened as tales unfurled, each a new-found chapter in his life. He learned of cities that once rose where now only whispers remained, their names forgotten like footprints washed away by relentless rains or silted over time's floodplain to rest beneath layers obscured from human eyes until the earth itself began to unravel. The elder spoke with a sorrow for lost civilizations, but also of love enduring beyond empire's fall. He told stories where even as structures crumbled under nature's reclaiming hand and waters receded like sighs into memory holes left by forgotten histories not inscribed on stone tablets nor captured within the web of time but carried forward in songs hummed to children who would one day become guardians themselves. As Temur absorbed these tales, his heart began its own pilgrimage through history's echoes. He saw himself as a thread interwoven with countless others into humanity's shared tapestry, each of us holding stories like droplets in rivers converging toward the ocean where all return. He understood that every tale told by firelight was not merely an end, but also continuation, for even when tales are spoken and listeners come to sleep under different skies or hear new truths echoed across generations, expansive these stories never truly die. They simply wait in the silence between heartbeats. Temur sat alone in an ancient courtyard that had once been a vibrant marketplace, now quiet under twilight's embrace, air heavy with dust and forgotten dreams, as if time itself held its breath within these crumbling walls. The sun dipped lower on the horizon like molten gold, seeking solace in shadowy recesses below. It was here he sought out a lone figure, one whose presence seemed woven from twilight's own hue, a woman with eyes that held galaxies and sorrow intertwined within their depthless pools of dark silk on her cheeks where youth had fled into the night long ago. She was there in silence, among ruins whispered by history, a keeper of stories beneath moon-flecked hair like strands spun from ebony velvet curtains that veiled forgotten gods and silent prayers offered to mothers who grieved their children's lost years under the tyranny of empires long crumbled into ash. Her name had been a secret carried by Winsong through generations, echoing in her melodic voice as if it were both birthright and burdener, legacy passed down like heirlooms from one tale-bearer to another, with each telling renewed its essence while preserving the soul of what once was. Temur approached this keeper of tales, his heart a pendulum swinging between reverence for her ancient guardianship and an urgency born out of desperate hope that he might learn enough to resurrect lost voices before time's cruel hand silenced them forevermore in the tomb of history. As they spoke beneath stars unseen by eyes not yet born, Temur learned from her how stories are like seeds planted within fertile minds wittering with curiosity and sunlight basking under attentive gazes to bloom into tomorrow's legacy. She imparted tales of love that endured through the ages, when every kiss was a defiance against oblivion, each embrace an act inscribed upon eternity's own tapestry. She shared with him not just stories, but songs, resonant timbres carried by her voice painting scenes where mighty rivers were born from tears of joy and sorrow alike as they nourished the roots of civilizations that rose to kiss sunlight on their proudest days before surrendering back into the earth. He listened, transfixed amidst tales woven with strands of melancholy for a past not his own, but forever connected in spirit through shared humanities, heartbeat or rhythm pulsing beneath ruins and resonating within Temur's chest, as if he were never more than an echo. The woman spoke now of the end, yet her voice did not betray sadness for mortality or a fear that all stories must someday fade into oblivion. Instead, it conveyed understanding that every story told is but one wave upon infinity's vast ocean, where they are forever joined by countless others in an eternal embrace. As night unfurled its cloak around them, and the first stars blinked awake to watch over their communion of souls under history's indifferent sky, Temur felt a sense that his heart could indeed become one thread amongst many a testament woven not from silk, but strands spun with every story told at firelight's warmth. In the quietest moments, when no words were spoken and only breath mingled between them like partners in an eternal dance, Temur discovered that even as he listened to tales of empires vanishing into whispers carried by Winsong through time's labyrinth, understood now his role was not solely one of passive listener, but also bearer of the torch passed down since before stone had heard its first echo. Within these hallowed ruins, where nature reclaimed her dew and water sighed into memory holes left by histories unrecorded yet alive in every note hummed to children who would become guardians themselves, Temur found his purpose as one more storyteller amidst legacies immortalized not on stone but within the hearts of those willing to remember. For even when tales have been told and their listeners come forth into dreams under skies unfamiliar or hear truth echoed across generations, expansive, these stories never truly die. They simply await, dormant in silence between heartbeats, until the moment comes for them to be whispered anew. And as he and his newfound mentor shared their final tale beneath a sky awash with indigo dreams interspersed by pinpricks of silver, as they shared one final tale, it became a rite as much about passing on wisdom as sharing history. Each word was deliberate, imbued with the serenity of their surroundings and carrying weight beyond mere storytelling or sacred thread in time's fabric. "Remember," Temur began softly after his mentor finished speaking, "the tales we share are more than history. They are a lifeline to our heritage." His voice was low yet resonant within the hallowed walls of their ancestral heartland, where every stone and stream seemed pulsating with ancient secrets. Mentor nodded, his eyes reflecting depths that spoke volumes without utterance as he replied, "And we must never forget to listen to understand not only what is told but also the silence between." He paused for a sip of wine they had brought along. Its flavors were subtle and complex, much like their shared stories. As night deepened around them, Temur unfurled tales that wove through time's tapestry of empires risen on whispers now lost to the wind, but alive in memory's eternal embrace within his listeners as they echoed down generations, like a river finding its way home. He told of their people, resilient and enduring despite changing rulers whose names became mere footnotes beneath layers of sand that time had shifted into dunes around these very stones. He now walked upon her testament to how history is but an illusion when viewed through the lens of impermanence. The strength of our culture lies not in stone or metal. Temur, his mentor, spoke gently between tales as if every word were a petal from their shared garden blooming with stories and legacies that they nurtured together by simply being present keepers at the hearth where history simmered to life through spoken legacy. Their dialogue meandered like an ancient river, touching upon subjects of love lost and found in times when kings fought for power. It was a tale not just told, but lived as if Temur were that prince who sought redemption, instead becoming the sage whose wisdom transcended his regal origins. They spoke too of journeys not across lands, but within themselves and with each other in moments when understanding bloomed like night blooming flowers only visible to those awake at midnight's hour. It was a tale that taught them the journey is just as important as any destination. Through their shared narratives, Temur learned of resilience and not merely surviving but thriving in times when nature herself seemed an adversary cloaked in verdant fury and unforgiving ice. His heart swelled with pride for the lineage that had weathered such storms. Our stories are our strength. Temur, his mentor, offered as a parting gift a reminder of their duty not just to remember but also feel history's pulse within them and recognize they were both guardians and storytellers. For even when the world spun into chaos or quietude beyond these borders, stories remained unbroken threads that bound generations. In those moments before dawn crept upon their gathering with stealthy paws of night shadows giving way to day's first light, Temur felt an indescribable peace. He understood the tales they shared were not merely words but living, breathing entities that carried within them his people's soul. With a final look at their mentor who had become more like family over countless starlit nights spent under these very boughs, Temur embraced this legacy of stories as the custodian he was destined to be, knowing well each time tales were passed down, oral histories became part of his own spirit. He stood alone for a moment longer amidst ruins now, silent witnesses just like him before bidding farewell under skies that promised more twilight and dawns yet. Unseen, Temur was the vessel through which history's whispers continued to flow, safeguarding them from silencing within his heart self. As he walked away with a single embrace of gratitude for their time together amidst echoes of laughter that had filled, Temur stood alone as he looked back on the days gathering beneath a sky soon to be draped in twilight, his heart full of stories yet untold and lessons learned from those who had shared them with him there. Laughter still echoed like whispers around ancient ruins. The air was cool against his skin as he traced the outlines of their makeshift meeting place that evening. A grand oak tree whose boughs were thick with history and leaves rustled tales older than time itself when caressed by gentle winds, creating an orchestra only those who listened closely could hear. As night began to fall like silk over the land of Eldery, a realm where magic pulsed in every river bend, and whispering woods held secrets as old as their shared bloodline, Temur found himself contemplating his place within this world that was constantly shifting between quietude and chaos. Each tale had been a thread intricately woven into the fabric of Eldoria's identity. Every word spoken carried weight because they were not just narratives but embodiments of lived experience, as triumphant roars after battles won by ancestors who fought with a bravery when their lands faced threats unimaginable. The stories had been told in hushed tones, a sacred ritual passed down through generations as they gathered under the protective gaze of moonlight that bathed Eldoria's landscapes and cast shadows only to be chased away by dawn's arrival or transient veil between nightmares and waking world. It was in these tales, whispered from ear to eager ear as if they were incantations summoning courage or wisdom needed for the day ahead, that Temur had discovered his own voice echoing through time. It resonated with purpose now more than ever before. He stood at its core. Temur knew of times when words meant survival and truth was currency in a world where shadows often spoke louder than voices could carry across valleys or mountains or fact. The tales his people shared were keenly aware, as they had been through centuries of change from which no secret escapist's haven remained untouched. The stories he heard carried both pain and joy. Love was not just a sentiment, but an act that bound wounds inflicted by strangers or enemies alike, a testament to Eldoria's resilience against the erosion of time, as its people had always stood together forged in Solidar 0Y. As twilight deepened and stars dotted the heavens like pinpricks on a black velvet canvas, Temur felt an intrinsic connection to those who came before him, a lineage he was proudly part of, yet humbled by their experiences that were now his legacy as well. And with each story shared under this great oak's watchful eyes, and the knit's cool embrace nurturing a sense of continuity, Timur understood why stories never truly die. They transform, but always remain rooted within hearts like the Serre living history in which he was to become an integral part. The next dawn would come with its own tales that needed telling, and listening ears awaiting the wisdom carried on wings woven from yesterday's echoes, as Timur embraced his destiny not just of guardian, but storyteller, a keeper of legacies, whose voice was now imbued with memories forged in shared silence between generations. And though he would leave the old oak tree that evening and venture into new lands where stories were yet unwritten, Timur carried within him a sacred trust to weave these threads together. His spirit became an intertwining of past wisdoms enriching future narratives, or custodian destined not only for himself but also the very soul of Eldoria. With each step away from this hallowed gathering spot, Timur's resolve hardened like steel tempered in ancestral fires. He knew that every word spoken or unspoken had been a brushstroke upon an ever-evolving canvas landscape. Before him was not just the world of Eldoria, but also one where its heart beat strongest within stories. And as Timur walked on, beneath skies promising more twilight and dawns yet to come, he felt his spirit resonate with a legacy far greater than himself. It sang in harmony with tales that would continue their flow from the lips of Eldorians past into those who dared dream for tomorrow. As Timur made his way towards new horizons where unknown paths beckoned and untold stories awaited, he held close to a heart swelling with gratitude. Not that evening had been a confluence not just of blood, but also spirit. Faces faded with age, and eyes sparkling like new-found gems met their kin's gaze for perhaps one last communion before parting ways to realms unseen by most, or testament to the timeless dance between memory and legacy. And as Timur took leave, his resolve mirrored in steel-like fortitude honed at Harside tales of yore, where wisdom was both shield and sword for those who wield it with honor. Beneath a sky that promised twilight's embrace, before the dawn's first light kissed dew into existence, Timur felt within him an essence no longer solely his own, but shared across generations, her custodian of law whose charge spanned beyond personal ambition to touch upon something greater. His soul resonated with a legacy not written in books or etched on stone tablets, but rather woven into the very sinews and bones of Eldoria, where stories lived as much within its heartbeat as any living creature's breathing chest. As he ventured forth from under this hallowed canopy it had cradled his lineage's chronicles for centuries past, Timur understood the gravity borne upon him, not just to preserve, but also nurture and cultivate these stories within himself so they might flourish anew in souls yet untouched by time. It was a sacred trust or pact with history itself that he could carry forth into tomorrow's uncertainty, his spirit intertwined irrevocably to the narratives of old as much as those still whispering on lips and dream within minds not born, but alive in thought alone. In each step taken beyond Eldoria's borders, where new lands beckoned with whispers unformed yet fervently yearning for tales, like rivers seeking their confluence into the vast ocean of collective memory, Temur found his resolve hardened, tempered within ancestral fires that had shaped him and countless others before. His journey was one not just across distances, but through epochs. To understand where he stood in time's grand tapestry required a pilgrimage backward as much as it did forward. In the days following his return from ventures into uncharted territories, Timur would often find solace by Eldoria's ancient ochre, guardian of secrets and silent counsel that stood stoic witness to countless seasons turned beneath its boughs as generations came forth seeking guidance. It was here, at the base, where he felt closest to his purpose yet, amidst roots entwined with time itself. It whispered not in words, but through touches of rustling leaves and caresses from cooling winds that spoke volumes more than any spoken language could convey an unspoken dialogue between guardian tree and custodian. The oak was a constant, its presence an anchor amidst the ever-shifting sands beneath Eldoria's gaze. Yet it too knew impermanence, for even in timelessness lies transformations, seed a reminder that what stands might one day crumble to dust and rise again as new forms. And Timur, with every sunset shared under its protective shadow, or amidst the caress of a starlit night sky where dreamers found solace beneath blankets woven from tales spun by firelight's dance, he understood that his role was not merely to be an observer, but also participant in this grand continuum. In Eldoria, every heartbeat pulsed with narrative as surely and predictably as the tides swaying upon its shores. Stories were life's very marrow and indelible mark of existence, not soon to be forgotten nor eroded by time's relentless march. And within Temur, a storyteller, who had always felt himself more like scribe or sculptor than mere raconteur, lay the quiet knowledge that his hands could shape as easily from memory's clay and breath of life itself as if he were an artist summoned. As darkness draped over Eldoria's world like a cloak spun from nightshade threads, Temur would stand before it once more, a guardian not just to his kin, but also keeper of histories that flowered within every crevice and curl upon its bark. His heart was the echo chamber for memories as real as life itself. Each beat resounded with narratives of bygone days, where heroes were carved into history like monuments, standing tall against time's erosion, or testament to deeds that shaped their world and all who lived within it. The oak had been there for every such tale, the birth cries of new nations cradled in its roots, loves blossoming beneath canopies woven with promises of eternity, battles fought where valor was currency exchanged through sweat and tears rather than coinage. All these stories were sown within it. Temur knew that his role extended beyond the mere act of storytelling. He shaped narratives as an artist sculpts marble or a bard composes symphonies from silence, giving form to dreams with words laced in hope and courage. Yet beneath this ancient tree, where generations had found respite or haven for the weary heart that sought solace amidst life's tempests of joy and despair alike, Temur felt a pang within his chest as he looked upon its boughs, recognizing their shared impermanence. Just like Eldoria herself, who would rise anew from the soil whence she sprung as surely as spring follows winter's retreat into memory's shadowed halls, so too did Temur understand that even his existence was but a transient breath in time. Yet it mattered infinitely within this grand tapestry. In Eldoria and her guardian lay the essence of stores, or living chronicle etched not just into stone or parchment, but woven intricately through their spirits as if destiny itself had penned a novel with them at its heart. It was this understanding that guided Temur's pen, as he looked upon his world, one where the whispers of rustling leaves and cool caresses from wandering wings composed an orchestra too profound for mere speech, knew they were not simply telling tales, but also living them with every soul's touch against bark, a communion deeper than words could ever achieve. Eldoria's heartbeat was the rhythm of narratives, and Temur had been their conductor as well as composer for eons, unending custodian, whose duty transcended mere recounting to become an integral thread in this world's intricate weave. He bore tales not just on his tongue, but carried them within the very sinews of existence. He felt the weight and warmth of every heartbeat around him, each a drumroll or hushed whisper that spoke volumes about their shared journey upon which they all danced dance as old as time itself, yet ever evolving with new partners joining in step by precious step. The oak knew too well the cycle to be at its end. Even within this seeming permanence, it stood on borrowed ground where every season whispered of change and rebirth, a constant reminder that nothing is immune from time's relentless march except for tales as they are born anew in each heartbeat. And just like the ever-changing seasons under its watchful boughs, Temur too would continue to shape stories not only of Eldoria, but also those yet unborner legacy entrusted upon him, that he could neither refuse nor fully comprehend, as his storytelling was more than mere occupation. It had become part and parcel of the very world's essence. As night deepened, Temur whispered to himself tales not just for Eldoria, but also those yet unborn who would one day seek refuge beneath this same canopy. The stories he wove were seeds sown into fertile ground where dreams might take root and flourish. The seasonal shift was a tender backdrop as Temur prepared for the upcoming festival in Eldoria. It had become his tradition to share tales that embodied not only their history but also whispered of future possibilities, ensuring they were passed on like sacred torches through time's dark corridors. The oak's leaves now blanketed the ground beneath him as he pondered over which story would take root tonight among his audience, a mosaic tale that combined myth and prophecy, where once fallen heroes could rise again in new hearts, guiding them toward an envisioned harmony. As twilight's embrace deepened, Temur felt the familiar thrum of life within Eldoria's waltz or vibrant tapestry that pulsated with everyday joys and sorrows alike. He reflected on his journey as a storyteller. For him, it was not simply about narrating events, but breathing new essence into the old bones of law, so they might continue to be reborn in each generation's spirit just like Eldoria itself, her land evergreen despite time's passage. In his study, surrounded by silence save for an occasional crinkle from turning pages and a soft humming that seemed almost musical at nightfall, Temur crafted tales of courageous souls who once braved the unknown just as he did now when facing life's unpredictability. With each storytelling session, with every word penned under the watchful boughs of his guardian oak tree, an entity that had silently witnessed centuries unfold from its steadfast roots to towering crown, Temur imbued ink and parchment with a love for continuity. He was both historian and prophet, ensuring legends never perished but persisted like the evergreen pines outside his study window. The festival approached as quickly as dawn follows nightfall, when Eldoria's people gathered to hear tales that spanned eons, or celebration where past wisdom met present courage with a hopeful gaze toward an uncertain future, binding them all in shared destiny beneath the oak's protective embrace. As Temur took his place before eager ears on this night of festivities, and stories flowed from him as naturally as rivers meet their destination, or narrative river that carved canyons through time itself, for those who listened with open hearts to understand not just the world they lived in, but also what might be waiting at life's bend. The final chapter always remained unwritten, yet every tale Temur told under Eldoria's ancient skies was a step toward that conclusion, an ever-evolving saga where he played both creator and custodian of worldly essence. His stories were the threads by which reality itself might be woven afresh in each hearth, home, or heart. As Temur wrapped up another tale with a resonant ending that echoed into silent contemplation, Melisthenes felt satisfaction not as an end, but rather as one more stitch within life's grand tapestry, where he himself was interwoven like the countless stories etched upon his soul. The night continued to unfold its velvet sky, studded with stars, that watched over Eldoria and Temur alike, silent audience aware of their fleeting existence, even as they burned brightly against it for uncounted ages yet to come. Such was the paradox in which life existed, ephemeral light shining forevermore. And just like that, beneath the watchful eye of his cherished oak, and with hearts interlaced through shared histories and Aspir's dreams, Temur's stories became lullabies for Eldoria, each word a honeyed droplet cascading into consciousness to ease minds asleep in thought beneath the canopy where tomorrow was always cradled within today. As he bid farewell and ventured back through twilight's cool kiss, Temur knew that even when his voice would one day fade like evening shadows at dawn's approach, tales themselves, it was said among Eldorians, that Temur's tales could weave reality itself, and in this quiet hour when eventide seemed content with nothing but their contemplation, he began his narrative tale not just about a hero or villain from the annals of history, but one imbued with life lessons to be carried forward into generations. Temur's voice rose and fell in gentle cadences, as if mimicking waves lapping upon ancient shores, his hands weaving unseen threads through air thickened by anticipation. The story unfolded like a lotus, revealing its heart, or tale of the Eldorian spirit named Alianar, who sought to understand her place within their world, that was as vast and incomprehensible as it was beautifully intricate, much like Temur himself felt among his listeners. Alianar discovered strength not through might but compassion. Her journey took her across realms where kindness turned foes into friends, and adversity birthed allies from the most unexpected of places. As she ventured forth on a quest to mend rifts within Eldoria, Aliana encountered creatures that defied explanation, beings whose existence blurred the lines between myths spun by Temur during his stories and flesh and blood reality, creatures with eyes like molten gold or wings of iridescent feathers. With every step on her path, Alianar's heart grew fuller, for she understood that to heal one part was to touch another. In silent Solidar 0180 across the tapestry, they all shared Eldoria and its people, likewise intertwined with legendary heroes such as herself. Temur paused at pivotal moments, allowing silence to blanket his listeners before resuming Alianar's tale. The night of whispering shadows arrived when Eldoria was divided by discord. Her people were fractured, and the skies wrought with storm clouds pregnant with unrest. It was then that ancient prophecies told tales not just about heroes, but also custodians who would emerge, custodians of worldly essence. As Aliana discovered her own connection to this hidden truth and learned the power she held as both keeper and creator within their shared history, Temur's tale took on a deeper resonance. He wove into his story threads that spoke not just of battles won, but also of peace forged in understanding of how Eldoria had always thrived when its people looked beyond themselves to see the reflection of each other's souls within their stories and dreams. And so, as Temur's voice lulled his audience into a realm where myth melded with reality under moonlight that seemed almost like it was listening to or shared experience unfolding beneath Eldoria's watchful sky-high's tale reached its conclusion not in the sense of ending, but beginning anew. For Eliana, her essence remained interwoven into every act and thought. She lived as a reminder to all that within their stories lay fragments waiting for hearts willing enough to find themselves whole upon listening attentively. The night deepened its embrace around the gathering of souls who now felt an indelible part in Eldoria's eternal story, a community bonded by shared histories and aspirations, their spirits melded within stories that transcended time itself to touch upon truth. As Eliana became a beacon for hope amidst shadows of doubt or fear, Temur's voice ebbed away like the final drops from an hourglass. He knew his tales were not just words spun into being, but threads within larger wefter fabric that enveloped Eldoria in warmth and light. And as the first hint of dawn kisses our cheeks with hues too delicate for mortal eyes to behold, let us remember Eliana's journey not just through tales. Temur concluded his story softly into silence that blanketed as dawn's first light began to touch upon Eldoria with a promise of renewal and hope. Eliana felt an indescribable sense of serenity wash over her soul. She knew that each sunrise held not just the potential for warmth, but also endless stories yet untold. The night's gathering had imbued their hearts with a profound connection not merely to one another, but as partakers in Eldoria's continuous narrative of courage and camaraderie that spanned generations before them. Eliana stood at the heart of this shared experience once more. Her essence was no longer confined within tales or memories alone. It had become a living testament to their collective strength, guiding each individual onward as they sought not just personal growth but communal harmony in understanding and embracing one another's stories. As the horizon gently pinked with sunrise hues that no mortal eyes could fully behold, Eliana led her people to a secluded grove wherein legend told of Eldoria's first dormer place sacred enough for heartfelt confessions and earnest prayers. Here in the embrace of ancient oaks, whose whispers seemed like echoes from times immemorial, she shared words meant not just as tales, but promises to live with honor and integrity that each could carry forward into their own lives without fear or prejudice. Eliana's voice carried across clearings where the air still held coolness of nighttime reverie. Her stories wove through themes of resilience, love found in unexpected places, and triumph over adversity, all threads from which Eldoria's community was intricately spun. She spoke with a conviction that resonated within their souls as she narrated journeys taken by ancestors who had once stood where they now gathered. Those voyages were not mere histories, but legacies, guiding lights in the darkness of uncertainty and doubt. As Eliana wove her final tale for the day, a parable about unity amidst strife that mirrored Eldoria's own trials throughout history, was fought with blood-soaked swords, only to be followed by seasons wherein crops grew freely in their fields and laughter rang from every corner of the land. The lesson was clear. Even when division seemed all but unavoidable, there would always come a time for reconciliation that brought forth strength anew within each individual's spirit to stand together as one against any storm threatening Eldoria's peaceful coexistence under their watchful sky and stars. As the golden orb rose higher above them with unrelenting purpose, a young lad named Temur found himself drawn not just by Eliana's stories, but also to his own heartbeat within this sacred grove. It was as if he could sense that each word spoken beneath Eldoria's canopy carried more weight than mere storytelling. He knew in the core of him these tales were vessels or means through which wisdom and insight traveled from one generation to another like ancient rivers feeding a fertile delta where new life flourished daily. Temur had always been introspective. His journey was not just about listening, but understanding how each person he encountered carried fragments of their essence within, waiting for the right moment or words or maybe both to reveal themselves fully to one another and become whole in a shared embrace. His own tales were no different from Eliana's as they intertwined through his experiences across lands where shadows often fell too heavily upon hearts that dared not speak their truth. leaving scars unseen yet deeply felt. Within the grove's hallowed silence, and under Eldoria's gaze of stars above which seemed to nod in agreement with Aelianor's every word, Timur found his voice echoed back at him by a gentle warmth that suffused his being. It was as though he had spoken into existence, finding resonance within himself through the stories shared. And nowhere else but here, and only under such skies, would Temur find solace from doubts or fears, for they were not just tales to tell, but mirrors reflecting one's innermost hopes for their community of souls united by history, dreams, and aspirations as much in the past as present. As Aeliana concluded her stories with a promise that Eldoria's future was woven from threads both golden like her own being, and darkened ones yet to be discovered within its people, her tales would become lessons for all who dared listen closely enough. Temur found himself in a reverie as Aelianor's voice lulled him into an introspective journey, and he lay beneath her gentle gaze like one of those ancient mariners who navigated by the stars above Eldoria. Her tales unfurled around them with such ease that his thoughts spun outwardly to embrace the warmth she infused in their shared silence. It felt as though each word was a thread woven into the very tapestry of existence, binding him closer not just to her but also to every soul that had ever called Eldoria home. In this chapter he began his own tailored narrative born from personal encounters with shadowed corners where light seldom ventured and truths lay dormant beneath the surface of daily life. Temur spoke first about a place shrouded in mist, hidden valleys that seemed to swallow whispers whole before they could ever become echoes on distant hillsides or land he once stumbled upon during his wanderings with Aelianor by his side under moonlit skies where the stars appeared as though painted onto the canvas of night. He described how, in these valleys that seemed untouched and forgotten, people lived like shadows themselves, their stories trapped within them just as they were encased beneath layers of pine needles on ancient forest floors. It was here among those who bore scars not visible to the eye, but palpable upon one's heart, where Temur found his voice deep into realization that even in Eldoria's darkest reaches there existed tales yearning for illumination like Aelianor's own had done before. With a sigh carrying through their shared silence to the grove beyond, which they lay now cradled by night's embrace and under watchful stars that seemed complicit in uncovering secrets long buried, Temur spoke of his journey toward understanding how one's past could become lessons for others. He wove together memories from various lands he had traversed where the people were bound more by kinship than blood or notion. Aeliana too cherished dearly within her heart, as it resonated with a truth she believed Eldoria herself embodied, that every soul, regardless of lineage or origin, shared an unbreakable bond through love and respect for their ancestral lands. In his narrative voice grew softer now as he recalled how during one fateful encounter in the depths of a forgotten city, half swallowed by time's relentless march or place, where even shadows seemed to whisper old secrets into those brave enough to listen, Temur had found not only answers but also unexpected kindred spirits who shared his passion for uncovering Eldoria's past. It was here among ancient stones and faded frescoes that he learned the power of stories in bridging gaps between hearts, revealing scars upon souls etched with tales as richly hued as Aelianor's own skin, a realization which made him understand better why she spoke so freely about their shared heritage. As his tale meandered through the memories of Eldoria's people like a river carving paths into new landscapes, he touched upon moments where joy and sorrow entwined inseparably, how celebrations were tinged with melancholy for lost kin, or how silent tears fell as rain during mourning. These dualities within each person's history became the threads from which Temur's own narrative was spun, a testament to their shared experiences and hopes. He spoke of his deepest yearnings not just for Eldoria, but also that untapped potential sleeping beneath it like seeds awaiting spring. In this chapter's closing moments, where the darkness outside seemed almost tangible, yet imbued with an ethereal glow as though kissed by a gentle hand from beyond worldly realms, Temur's story culminated in his final promise to Aeliana that through their shared tales and experiences they would kindle understanding among Eldoria's people just as she had done for him. And with this pledge echoing softly into the night like a prayer offered at sacred altars of memory and dream, Temur surrendered himself once more to sleep's tender embrace alongside Aeliana, their breaths melding in quiet harmony until even whispers became as distant as shadows under Eldoria's watchful stars. As the chapter closed, a mere pause before another night of storytelling beneath a sky that held unspoken promises and secrets yet to be discovered by those daring enough to seek them out together. As Temur lay on his back next to Eliana, he thought about the day's events and how they had brought him even closer to her than ever before. Something felt different between them, no newfound warmth like kindling understanding among the Eldoria's people, just as she had done for him. In their shared tales of joy and sorrow within Eldoria, Temur found himself not only unraveling the complexities that bound his own family's past, but also discovering a thread connecting to Eliana in ways he never could have imagined before meeting her. It was as if they had been woven together by fate's delicate fingers throughout history. Temur closed his eyes, letting himself become one with the night and its calming embrace that seemed almost tangible, yet imbued with an ethereal glow like a gentle hand from beyond worldly realms. As darkness embraced them both, he surrendered to sleep's tender hold once more, while Eliana's soft breathing echoed against his own in quiet harmony. As the night unfolded, Temur found himself lost within thoughts of Eldoria, its mountains that touched skies and rivers carving through valleys as though they had been sculpted by ancient hands. He remembered stories told long ago about how these very features were once home to spirits who could grant wishes if only one knew where to look for them. Intrigued by this possibility, Temur wondered whether their shared journey might be more than mere coincidence, a quest that led him and Eliana on an adventure through Eldoria's enchanted landscapes in search of these spirits. He felt as though they were discovering a world beyond himself all over again. He remembered how, years ago, when darkness had first descended upon his homeland with the passing of generations since their ancestors' time, how it seemed that every aspect of life was tinted by melancholy for lost kin or silent tears falling as rain during mourning. This memory now felt like a distant echo from an age gone by. As Temur's thoughts meandered through Eldoria's past, his gaze fell upon Eliana, whose eyes were closed and her breathing steadier testament to the quiet strength she carried within herself since their first meeting. He found himself longing for more than just companionship with a kindred spirit. In this moment of reflection, Temur realized that perhaps there was something deeper at play in his connection with Eliana, not merely shared experiences, but an untapped potential sleeping beneath Eldoria like seeds awaiting spring. He felt as though their spirits were intertwined across time and space, were souls seeking solace amidst the ruins of a world that had once been. With these thoughts swirling within him, Temur allowed himself to sink deeper into sleep's embrace beside Eliana until even whispers became as distant as shadows under Eldoria's watchful, star's day faded away without them noticing fully just how much time had passed. He knew that tomorrow would bring new adventures, fresh discoveries about their intertwined histories and shared destinies. He couldn't help but wonder if Eliana felt the same way as she lay beside him in her sleep-drenched haze of contentment, her sense of being exactly where she needed to be at precisely this moment. As Temur's consciousness ebbed with each passing hour, he found himself slipping further into dreamland, while Eliana's presence wrapped around his thoughts like a comforting blanket on chilling nights. Together they had journeyed through tales of sorrow and hope that echoed the dualities within their own histories. These threads, spun from memories held dear by Temur's ancestors, now intertwined with Eliana's as well, creating an intricate tapestry depicting not just shared experiences, but also deep-seated yearnings for understanding amidst Eldoria, a place where darkness and light were forever entwined in a dance across the ages. With every breath they took together under that eternal canopy of stars, Temur felt his spirit being lifted. It was within this realm that he encountered a spectral figure draped in ethereal robes, her voice carrying through time like delicate mist. "Why soul's journey is entwined with yours," she whispered to him from the edge of his dreaming mind, a reflection of Eliana's own essence. This apparition guided Temur deeper into visions that blurred reality, revealing ancestral secrets woven within Eldoria's very foundations. As dawn approached and tendrils of light began to seep through the night skyline, casting a warm glow upon their resting forms, Temur's dream journey revealed itself as one last revelation, or hidden chamber beneath his ancestral home, wherein lay an ancient tome bound by enchantments long forgotten. With Eliana's breath at his ear and her touch light on the fabric of reality beside him in sleep, he felt a newfound determination to awaken their shared past buried within these pages before they both rose from beneath Eldoria's watchful gaze once more. with each flip of the tome's page by Temur's mind as if stirred forth by Aelianar's own curiosity. Tales unfolded her legacy spanning centuries, where he discovered his bloodline was intertwined with a clandestine order that had preserved Eldoria through ages past. The Order of the Scarlet Veil, guardians who kept vigil over this world's balance between shadow and light by harnessing its latent magics, always ensuring harmony, remained within reach despite times when strife threatened to tear it asunder. Aelianar's presence beside him seemed almost physical in the visions she inspired, a spectral echo of her own lineage with routes traced back through Eldoria's history, wherein lay a prophecy foretelling their fates becoming intertwined, two halves of an ancient riddle meant to restore equilibrium when chaos encroached upon this realm. Temur found himself not merely the heir, but par prophecy incarnate, the key that might unlock Eldoria's salvation from a burgeoning darkness seeking dominion over its essence, threatening all it held dear within and beyond these borders of dreamt landscapes under their shared skies. The revelations cascaded upon Temur like the first rays of dawn as he began to awaken. His last memory was Aelianar's gentle hand slipping across silken sheets, her face half illuminated by morning's embrace, her smile dancing between closed eyelids. And in that moment, before waking consciousness could claim him back into reality from within the folds of sleeping fantasy once more, he felt an unspoken understanding settle deep within his heart, for they were bound to one another not just by blood, but also spirit, an eternal journey ahead where shared destinies and histories would guide them through both light's warmth and darkness. Abyss. As the sun crept above Eldoria, painting its skies with hues of promise that mirrored within Temur's own awakening soul, he knew this day held significance beyond simple passage. It was an invitation to reclaim what had been lost in time and rediscover a part of himself long interred beneath layers of history. And as they rose together from the landscapes woven by drenched hands within Eldoria's embrace under its eternal canopy, Temur carried with him not just memories, but purpose, or clarion call to seek out Aeliana and embark on a quest that would forever bind their destinies as protectors of this realm. With each step toward the awakening world, they knew all too well awaited challenges ahead, yet he felt armed with tales from generations past which now coursed through his veins like lifeblood, or heritage to uphold, and a legacy that beckoned him forth as dawn's light stead in chapter XXXX of our tale, within Eldoria's heartland, where dream and reality intertwined like lovers in an eternal dance. Temur found his purpose once more as a beacon for truth amidst shadows that sought to conceal it under the guise of night. The world had greeted him with open arms since he awakened from slumber's embrace. Each step toward destiny was met not just by familiar faces, but also unforeseen allies whose stories wove into his own like threads in an ancestral tapestry, enriching and expanding the narrative of their shared journey. Temur had been told tales since childhood that spoke of a forgotten land where sunsets birthed stars, from twilight's shadow a realm called Aelianar, which lay shrouded in mystery yet pulsating with ancient magic, awaiting rediscovery by one who bore the blood and soul imbued with its legacy. The tales spun visions of a place where time flowed differently. Days were spent under golden skies that painted dreams across reality's canvas, while nightfall was an opportunity to gaze into depthless realms beyond mortal understanding, through eyes wide as the moon and brimming with silent wonder. As Temur journeyed from Eldoria towards these promised lands of mythical origins, each encountered character shared a piece of history or secret that resonated within him, or melody played in harmony to his own awakening spirit, which hummed not just memories, but also the music of possibility. A bard who sang tales as if they were alive and moving with her lute's strings, whispering legends into ears eager for understanding. A wayward traveler whose maps bore no paths yet, seemed drawn by intuition rather than intention. Each encounter added depth to Temur's sense of self, while honoring the legacy entrusted upon his shoulders. One eve, as he camped beneath constellations that narrated fables older than Eldoria itself, a peculiar figure approached him from within folds woven by firelight and shadow, a child with eyes reflecting galaxies, born in cosmic forges beyond stars' reach, yet gazing back through them into hopeful innocence. This being bore no name nor history as Temur knew it, but spoke of Aelianar not just as a land to behold, but also one that echoed the heartbeat within him, an ancient soul reborn in his chest with every beat or pulse he felt had been silent for far too long. I see you carry Eldoria's essence and Aelianor's promise," spoke this child of cosmos-wrought visions as Temur regarded the stranger, for to seek out these lands is not just a journey across miles, but also through time past that fades into legend alongside forgotten futures. Timur's heart swelled with understanding. It was no mere coincidence his quest led him back here. The child handed over an object weathered by epochs, its surface etched in runes glowing faintly like captured stars or key that hummed when near Aelianor's whispers and shimmered with the energy of connection between worlds long severed but never truly apart from one another. The next morning found Temur awakening not just to a new sunrise, but also an unspoken pact forged in dreams embrace an alliance formed by destinies intertwined through the threads of myth and memory that spanned generations across time itself. As they departed at dawn's first light from Eldoria's threshold into realms yet to be traversed, a sense of belonging wrapped around Temur like armor forged in resolve of her. He was no longer just bearer of legacy, but also its living vessel as the world lay expectant beneath their journeying gaze. Ahead of them were uncharted territories and trials yet to be faced by mortal kind, where every creature bore a testament to history's depth that Temur would learn from with reverence for each life-layer guardian's role awakened in his spirit as the land itself seemed poised on the brink of revealing its secrets. Yet, amidst anticipation, it was Aeliana herself who awaited them at a crossroad carved by ancient power and eternal magic that hummed beneath her soil or meeting place, where realities, fabric intertwined with dreams, spun from the loom of destiny. As they approached this hallowed ground between worlds, Temur's heart fluttered like captive birds within a cage forged by his own resolve and purpose. He carried onward, not Aelianor's eyes held an ancient light as she regarded them, her gaze pierced through the veil between worlds with clarity born from wisdom accumulated across countless livid zero vests spent under Eldoria's nurturing skies. She had always known that their bond was woven by fate, yet here in this place where time seemed to pause and history itself whispered secrets through the rustling leaves of trees grown into gnarled sentinels around them, she realized how deeply it ran within his heart, a confluence of past and present destined not just for each other, but also a path that transcended their own realm. The crossroads did more than mark a physical junction. They opened doorways to the echoes of Eldoria's once great legends, where heroes lived as myth among mortals and magic flowed freely like rivers through valleys fertile with enchantment. Temur listened intently as Aeliana narrated tales that threaded his spirit into every legend or shared ancestry now unveiled before him in the mosaic of voices from bygone eras, each story a testament to courage and sacrifice etched deeply within Eldoria's legacy. Beneath their feet, symbols pulsed with life. Runes that danced like fireflies on ancient stones whispered secrets in the language lost to all but those who had borne witness through ages past, or cryptic dialect understood only by Temur and Aeliana as they stood together at this fulcrum of fate. They were drawn into silent communion, their joined hands tracing patterns that resonated with purpose across centuries-old carvings on the path ahead. An oath to safeguard Eldoria's mystical heritage passed between them unspoken, yet understood, her sacred vow as eternal and binding as time itself. Through eyes wide with wonder, Temur gazed upon Aelianor's visage carved by wisdom. The lines of age around her mouth told tales no words could capture, each wrinkle a storyline from which he had drawn his own historial lineage that bound them not just to Eldoria but also across time. With every heartbeat shared between man and woman beneath this arcane threshold, their pact solidified deeper into the marrow of existence. They were no longer mere mortals passing through life's transient chapters, but co-authors in a saga that would span eons, or tale woven with threads gilded by destiny itself. As twilight descended upon Eldoria's threshold, painting the sky and foliage alike in hues of amber and indigo, like the palette of an ancient artist, Temur felt his resolve hardened to steel or purpose born from their union, with both worlds' heartbeats echoing within him. Each step forward through this mystical crossroads was a stride toward guardianship that transcended individuality. Together they would become the embodiment of Eldoria's legacy, protectors eternal against encroaching shadows born from realms where light dimmed in fear and darkness sought dominion. Their journey took them to lands untouched by time's heavy-hand realities, pulsating with energies both benevolent and malevolent, as they ventured into territories that lay beyond the mundane, touching upon truth's raw essence where wisdom danced on wind-blown leaves. There Temur learned of power not wielded but respected or force inherent in all life forms. Here he discovered kinship with creatures unbound by human construct and understood his role as steward to their collective stories, each being a custodian themselves within the vast tapestry that was existence. In this realm of interdimensional communion, where thoughts mingled like watercolors on an artist's palette, a place not entirely foreign, but infinitely distant, from Eldoria's green embraced Temur and Aeliana wove their own hues. Temur and Aeliana found themselves within a glade that shimmered with an otherworldly glow under the soft caress of twilight, where time itself seemed to hesitate between epochs or nexus point, for all seasons intertwined like ribbons around their fingers. It was here, beneath Eldoria's ever-watchful eyes, that they first encountered a creature as wondrous and unique as the land from which it hailed, an entity of such intricate beauty its very existence defied understanding, yet resonated with truth in all beings, or sentient willow tree, whose roots delved deep into ancient wisdom. This arboreal guardian greeted them, not with words, but through a symphony of rustling leaves and creaking boughs, narrating tales that painted history itself within the foliage, patterns etched upon its skin, living chronicle speaking directly to their hearts without uttering sound. Here was guidance wrapped in nature's embrace. Here they felt themselves intertwined with Eldoria's soul and destiny, as if each leaf were a note strung from Temur's own spirit, while Aeliana found her essence mirrored within its bark-bound tapestries. Their journey led them next to the whispering sands of dusk-fuller desert, where night bloomed flowers that unfurled petals as delicate and vibrant against starlit skies, their fragrance sweet with memories both bitter and joyous from worlds afar. It was here Temur learned humility. Amid the silent sighing of shifting dunes, beneath a moon casting its soft glow upon secrets buried in sand, he found his strength not solely within, but through Aeliana's unwavering support, his protectoress, spirit intertwined with her own. They ventured forth into the shimmering veil of mirrored echoes, a place where reflections danced upon each surface and distorted reality, creating visions that revealed truth hidden within illusion while challenging one's perception to see beyond veils draped over sight. It was here, in this hallucinatory expanse, they discovered harmony between opposite light with darkness, chaos with order, for each reflection bore a facet of their dual nature intertwined so intimately that discerning one from the other required patience and understanding as delicate as spider silk. Their odyssey then carried them towards Elysian rivers, where water flowed not just with force, but also with purpose, each stream a path through history's heart or journey of life that wound along liquid ribbons across landscapes painted in time's brushstrokes. Temur and Aeliana danced upon these mirror-like waters under the watchful gaze of stars above. Here they learned to flow with grace, their movements synced as if by unseen hands, guiding them through reflections deep within themselves, a lesson in unity, where individuality dissolved into a shared essence. The Chronos End was an ancient ruin shrouded not just in mystery, but also the echoes of civilizations long forgotten, its stones pulsating with energies that transcended mere physical form to touch upon elements themselves, earth and air entwined within architecture both grandiose and haunting. It stood as a testament to time's ebbing flow. Here Temur saw the fragility of existence, while Aeliana embraced it with arms that held not just her love, but also memories imprinted in each stone mosaic where their footsteps whispered tales into the sands, etching moments as if carving them from time's own flesh. Into these realms of wonder they journeyed without fear or hesitation, for within Temur and Aeliana's hearts beat not just one heart, but two, a melody harmonized through shared resolve, that resonated beyond the veils separating worlds, touching even those who dwelled in shadow. Their purpose was clear as crystal streams. Together they would weave a legacy of protection across both their origins and destinations, becoming guardians not just for themselves, but also to bridge realms where love defied division, or beacon whose light could pierce the deepest darkness with tenderness that mended rifts. As night unfurled its inky wings around them like a cloak of stars, against which their own silhouettes seemed mere whispers, they found themselves drawn once more to Eldoria's threshold, or place where dream and reality kissed upon the cusp of dawn's first light. Here was their journey, had been long and arduous, but at every turn of their path through Eldoria's heartwood forests to its ancient ruins echoing with bygone eras, a part of themselves seemed more entwined within the essence of these lands than ever before, and yet nowhere in Eldorian did they find solace as much as at this very boundary where day meets night. It was here that time itself appeared to halter place between realms for them and their kin, both seen and unseen. As the first light of dawn danced across Temur's face like a benediction from nature herself, he reached out with tender fingers trembling slightly as they grazed Aelianor's cheek. Their lips met in an intimate kiss that spoke volumes more than words ever could or promise, sealed within shared warmth against the cool morning air of Eldoria's threshold. Aeliana, eyes reflecting the depth beyond her years, yet touched with innocence, untouched by sorrow's cruel hand, took his fingers between hers and sighed deeply as if to release all burdens they carried into that singular moment of peaceful surrender. Her gaze then wandered skyward where stars had begun their slow retreat from the day's canvas. She whispered a silent gratitude for Eldoria's beauty, or symphony composed by nature, and humankind was merely its instrument in harmony with this world of wonder. "The night has been kind to us," Temur said softly as he watched her face shimmer under the nascent light. "Yet tomorrow beckons for our guardianship." He looked into Aelianor's eyes, seeking affirmation that they were both ready not just physically but spiritually to take on their roles and become more than companions in this shared journey of existence between worlds, to stand as sentinels against the encroaching darkness. Aelianor nodded solemnly without speaking a word, acknowledging Temur's unspoken fears with her own resolve mirrored within his soul, an understanding that their purpose extended far beyond mere survival in this liminal space between worlds. It was about weaving the threads of connection and harmony into an enduring legacy. Their shared commitment to protect both realms from despair became as much a part of them now, like scars etched across their hearts, that only strengthened with time or vow not just for themselves, but also for all who would find refuge within Eldoria's enchanted borders. Their love was an emblematic force. It transcended the mere biological union to become a spiritual and cosmic confluence, intertwining their destinies in ways that neither had anticipated when they first embarked upon this quest together across worlds, or journey which now seemed not just as lovers, but also allies with powers beyond ordinary comprehension. With Aelianor's silhouette fading from view against the burgeoning light of day, Temur felt a quiet resolve settle within his chest, like roots deepening into fertile soil, or conviction that they were exactly where and when their purpose needed them most. At this very crossroads between worlds stood guardianship's call. He turned back towards Eldoria's threshold, each step imbued with a sense of duty, to safeguard not just the natural beauty before him, but also its ethereal inhabitants, or responsibility he would honor alongside Aelianor until their last breath mingled in unity against darkness. Advance. And as they ventured back into Eldoria's embrace, hand in hand with dreams of future tales to forge and legacies yet unwritten on the canvas of time, Temur felt a soothing assurance that their love was more than just ephemeral, it would echo through eternity. Their silhouettes faded from view, leaving behind only footprints in Eldoria's sands as proof they had been there at all, and not simply apparitions of daylight's first touch, a testament to their unwavering commitment towards the legacy that would remain long after shadows grew bold once more. And Temur knew he was prepared for his heart as Temur and Aelianor ventured back into Eldoria's embrace with a newfound sense of purpose. Their steps were in perfect harmony, or duet, that resonated through the very essence of time itself. The air around them shimmered with an ethereal glow, as if acknowledging Temur's quiet assurance and Aelianor's unwavering commitment to a legacy beyond mere existence. Their love was eternal, transcending physicality into something far more profound, a beacon of hope for all who would come after. In Eldoria's heart, where time held no sway over its ever-changing beauty and secrets unfurled with each passing moment, the two guardians found themselves at a crossroads as they stood against an encroaching darkness that sought to blur lines between realms so malicious, force led by sorcerers of old who yearned for dominion over sacred spaces. The silhouettes of Temur and Aelianor had faded, yet their presence remained palpable in the cool breeze upon Eldoria's breath-kissed shores, footprints etched into sands that whispered tales to those who dared listen closely enough. These were not mere signs, but symbols of a love so deep and enduring it promised immortality, intertwining two souls with the fate of Eldoria itself as its custodians against threats unseen yet felt in every rustle of leaves and shivering wave that lapped at ancient stones. As they stood guard over this world kissed by both sunlight's warmth and moonbeams' silver caress, the night sky above Eldoria began to weave threads of a dark tapestry not seen since times when myth became legend and whispered lore around dying fires. The sorcerers emerged from their shadowy recesses like spectres born anew. They were seekers after power that could only be wielded through corruption and betrayal of trust, with hearts as cold as the stones upon which Eldoria's very foundation lay hidden beneath roots run deep. Temur knew he had faced darkness before, its many hues from blackest midnight to dawn's first blush, but this was different, a malice that sought not just entry into realms of magic and mystery where even gods tread with reverence for balance's delicate dance. It thirsted instead for the very soul essence of Eldoria, itself a treasure greater than any jewel or bounty amassed by kings long turned to dust beneath ancient headstones that marked their final repose at twilight's call. Within Eliana he found a strength beyond himself. Her essence was one with Eldoria's heart, her living pulse of magic so pure it rivaled the stars themselves for brilliance, yet harbored not ambition, but compassion as vast as oceans that cradled continents in their embrace. Together they stood, a testament to unity and love amidst chaos, Temur with his steadfast resolve like an unyielding mountain against which the winds of adversity could only howl futilely away into oblivion's more bastion for Eldoria's very spirit. Eliana, her gaze steady upon their foes who approached with whispers as hushed yet threatening as a tempest on the horizon just beyond sight. They knew that within this confrontation lay not only victory but also revelations of self and soul, or journey inward towards truth's core, where strength was forged by understanding, resilience born from knowledge shared across lifetimes entwined. The sorcerers sought to sever the bond between Temur, Eliana, Eldoria's own essence, their spells twisted like serpents attempting to devour its heart, a ruthless pursuit that threatened not just a single realm but all others nestled in harmony along paths unseen by mortal eyes. They sought the purity of magic itself, something far beyond mere dominion over lands and peoples. Their ambition was as corruptive venom seeping into soil soaked with generations' worth of love for this world, or poison that would not be contained nor quelled without resistance fierce in spirit. And Temur found his resolve within the very purpose he had felt echoing through time's embrace. To stand against such darkness was but a duty fulfilled, an act penned by fates long before their meeting upon Eldoria's threshold or tale of guardians. Temur stood rooted to the ground as if he were a sentinel of time itself, for being whose presence could quell storms and calm seas alike, yet who bore no love for power or conquest that did not serve greater ends. He had learned from his elders about Eldoria's history, its trials by fire and ice. Tales were told as though they lived in the very air of this sacred land, where every stone was saturated with echoes of ancient battles now whispered only to those who knew how to listen closely. His heart ached for Eldoria, not because he felt compelled, it had always sought no dominion over lands or people, but from a deep-seated understanding that the essence of all magic lay in its purpose and intent. The sorcerers' ambitions were as dark clouds upon his horizon. Their power was undeniable, yet poisonous to Eldoria's spirit, her malevolent force seeking not only control over physical territories, but also a dominion so corruptive it would fracture the very essence of magic. As Eliana faced down her foes with an unwavering gaze, Temur felt his resolve strengthen in accordance to their shared duty to protect Eldoria from being torn asunder by forces that did not comprehend its heartbeat, or understand the threads binding all realms together. He knew this confrontation was a mirror reflecting back at them through time. It showed how each of them, despite different paths and destinies entwined like ivy on ancient walls, were guardians bound to safeguard truth's core against darkness that sought only its own asphyxiation in the name of power. The sorcerers had come from beyond Eldoria's borders, from realms where light flickered uncertainly and shadows often grew too bold for comfort. They were not foreign invaders, but harbingers who believed themselves to be bearers of change necessary despite its perilous nature. Their spells twisted like serpents attempting to devour the heart's essence within Eldoria, a ruthless pursuit that threatened more than just a single realm. They sought not only purity in their own form, but wished to sever all connections between souls across life-deep planes. Eliana, with her spirit as unyielding as the ancient stones of Eldoria itself, and Temur by her side, while guardians intertwined through fate's delicate fingers stood ready for what lay ahead on this night, where stars would bear witness to their resolve or folly. Each spell cast against them, each curse whispered in ambition's name, was a testament not merely of power, but the depths from which it can spring forth, whether birthed by malice or necessity itself bore no difference when unchecked and allowed to run rampant across lands that should have known better. As Temur drew upon his own essence-heir legacy entwined with Eldoria's, through countless lifetimes of guardianship before him, sensed not just the threat encroaching from without but also within, where doubts and desires often danced in disguise. He had learned that true strength was forged by understanding oneself as much as one understood their adversaries, resilience born only through knowledge shared across lifetimes, entwined like roots of the eternal oak whose branches sheltered Eldoria from all manner of storms, both literal and metaphorical. The sorcerers before Aelianor were not just her enemies, but also bearers of truth that she sought to unveil, a revelation born out of necessity, as much a confrontation with self-doubt cloaked in the guise of an impending siege by powers unknown and fearsome. The purity they so blindly pursued was not without its shadows, for it fed upon Eldoria's essence like voracious flames or corruption that sought to cleanse rather than create, a perilous ambition rooted in ignorance of the very threads binding all realms together. The night air carried with it both tension and an unseen current, as if every leaf upon Eldoria's emerald canopies held its breath or whirled, suspended between flickers of hope against encroaching darkness that sought not just power, but the very soul of magic itself. Temur knew their resolve would be tested in ways beyond spells and incantations. They must confront each other's fears, understand what drove them towards this precipice, where night had claimed dominion over day, or battleground between guardians whose duty transcended mere survival but extended to Temur, stood alone atop Eldoria's highest tower, as night enveloped his world in a shroud of darkness, punctuated by distant howls and whispers that threaded through shadows like silver needles, stitching fear into the hearts of all who heard them. The once lush landscapes now seemed tainted with an unnatural stillness or silence, too profound to bear without acknowledging its weight upon Eldoria's spirits and essence alike. As Temur gazed out over his kingdom, memories of shared histories danced in the back of his mind like reflections on a moonlit pond. Knowledge passed down through Lifit Zero RS, wove into him as if it were an ancestral mantle he bore with pride and trepidation. The sorcerers had sought purity not for harmony, but to unravel Eldoria's very solar folly born of misconception, cloaked in the grandeur of self-assuredness that belied their ignorance about what truly bound all existence together, love and interconnected destiny. Their quest had been blinded by ambition, a thirst for power as reckless as it was uninformed or dangerous pursuit, when knowledge itself could be the most potent weapon of salvation or destruction if wielded with understanding rather than arrogance. Temur realized that his own doubts mirrored those he had witnessed in others, fears not just external, but internal, clawing at foundations built over lifetimes, a revelation as unsettling to acknowledge as it was liberating. As the first stars pierced night's fabric like needles of their own silver threading through a dark tapestry, Temur descended from his sanctuary with purpose renewed by introspection and resolve fortified in quiet contemplation. The sorcerer's speller force both feared and revered for its potential to cleanse or consume entirely loomed like an unspoken question hanging over Eldoria's tomorrow, a reminder of the peril that lay within their own hearts when ambition eclipsed wisdom. Temur sought counsel from those he deemed wise beyond themselves, historians who had lived lifetimes amidst knowledge, and guardians whose very essence was intertwined with Eldoria's magic through lineages unbroken by time's passage, or counsel that might hold the key to understanding this darkness both without and within. As he met each advisor in their respective realms of influence across the land, from ancient libraries shrouded in dusty tomes speaking secrets only now heard again, to forests alive with whispers carried by winds themselves, or symphony of nature's voice that had begun to falter under sorcerers, spellcasting Temur absorbed their wisdom like parched soil soaks the rain. Each encounter brought him closer, not just geographically, but in spirit, as he traced connections invisible yet undeniable between past and present, a tapestry of intentions woven with strands both noble and nefarious that had been left unchecked for far too long by those who claimed purity above all. The sorcerer's encroaching siege seemed not just upon the physical borders, but on Eldoria's very soul, a darkness feeding off ignorance as much as it did greed, a reflection of Temur himself, when he had once doubted his own worth and place within this realm. But no longer could fear guide him. Understanding was needed to navigate through their shared night towards dawn's hopeful light. He returned from the council with a plan that echoed not just strategy, but also unity, recognizing in himself an ally who had found solace amidst his own storm of doubt, an ember of trust smoldering within him now kindled into flame by shared purpose and new-found kinship. It would be Eldoria's combined strength that might stand against the sorcerer's ambition, for in seeking purity through darkness they had neglected their duty to protect not just themselves, but all who dwelled under Eldoria's banner of unity and love. As Temur rallied his people with words steeped in truth from a council that transcended individual capability alone, he found himself looking towards the unseen threads binding the common destiny, where every heartbeat was entwined like roots beneath Eldoria's soil, an essential reminder of what they must save together. The battle ahead loomed not just as a conflict, but also as an opportunity for redemption, understanding that the sorcerer's lust for power might, my dearest friends, Temur's voice resonated through the grand chamber as he addressed his people for what would become a defining gathering in Eldoria's history. Against darkness and despair, we stand at this precipice of our shared destiny, a moment where every decision bears weight beyond measure. As we look to vanquish those who cloak themselves under shadow's guise with their vile intentions towards all that is sacred in Eldoria. The council members nodded solemnly, understanding the gravity each word carried for them and their kin. Temur continued, his eyes scanning across faces laden with resolve as he spoke of an alliance not just within, but also beyond Eldoria's borders, a coalition that promised to be unbreakable when hearts beat in harmony against adversity's cruel hand. For too long, Temur admitted, his voice a tender echo amidst the clinking chains and rustling scrolls of parchment before him on council tables, as if they themselves bore witness to their pact's significance, we have let fear rule our actions when courage must be our compass. We are not mere individuals. We share blood, breath, love, or tapestry woven into the very fabric of this realm. The air grew heavy with a collective memory as Temur recounted tales from his own past struggles and those shared by many within Eldoria's history. Each story was not merely retold for nostalgia, but to rekindle an understanding that their ancestors had always known unity in diversity, strength through compassionate kinship, with all beings under the sky they called home. And so, Temur's voice grew more fervent, as if awakened by this very realization of shared human experiences and aspirations that transcended beyond just Eldoria's reach. We shall extend our hand not only to those within these walls, but also across the lands. We have forged a pact with neighboring kingdoms who share in safeguarding peace, or bonds sealed by mutual respect, wherein we offer aid and receive wisdom. A hush fell as Temur unveiled plans of collaboration, each detail interlaced within his speech like threads chosen from different colors to create a vibrant mosaic depicting their journey's shared path. Strategies were laid bare that considered every citizen's role, from the blacksmith forging weapons with purposeful intentions and hearty smiles, offering them as symbols of unity rather than instruments of war, to merchants weaving trade agreements into a tapestry where prosperity would be shared amongst all classes. Together, Temur emphasized gently but firmly while his thoughts drifted towards the future. And not just battlefields, we will build our city structures that stand testament to harmony's might against division's decay. He spoke of greening Eldoria with groves where children would learn from nature itself about balance in life. As he concluded his speech, Temur gazed upon the sea of faces before him, not just as subjects but fellow travelers on a path toward an enlightened, rare time when might was matched by mercy's strength and sorrows were mended with understanding's balm rather than scars left unattended. Let this be our legacy, Temur whispered to the night as he departed, that we shall not just fight for Eldoria, but uplift it through every action taken in unity's name. His heart swelled with hope and determination, or promise that despite fear's lingering touch upon his soul from times of doubt, when he first sought to rise within this world, the council hall emptied, yet the air remained thick with inspiration as Temur walked away under a canopy woven by countless stars above him, each one not just light, but also hope for those who believed in Eldoria's beating heart of unity and love against all adversities. And so he left his mark on that night, sowing seeds of courage into the very essence of every soul returning to there. The next few nights found Temur wandering amongst verdant groves that began sprouting at his behest, where tender saplings reach skyward with eager growth mirrored by the aspirations of each child who tended to the mad-living testament to Eldoria's newfound harmony. In these lush enclaves away from prying eyes and judgmental ears, Temur shared tales not just of his journey, but also imparted lessons on empathy and understanding through the language only nature could communicate, the whispering leaves that sway with every word spoken aloud to them in gratitude. As days melded into one another like watercolor shades, Temur encountered Alara, a young girl whose heart had been as hardened by years of strife within Eldoria's walls more than the sun's scorching summer rays that usually kissed its landscapes. She carried herself with a reserve he respected but knew was misplaced. Her eyes held depth beyond their age, reflective pools where once there had been ice-cold fear and doubt. With patience as slow to bloom yet unwavering in his resolve, Temur approached Alara under the guise of inquiry about Eldoria's flora, subject close to her heart since childhood when she would accompany her parents on foraging expeditions before strife tore them apart. They spoke not just as teacher and pupil, but shared a communion over stories, laughter, tears, and the revelation that their histories were woven from threads of similar dreams or mosaic only unity could complete. This union blossomed like night-blooming jasmine in darkness. Alara's spirit soared as layers peeled away to reveal a heart beating with the rhythm of newfound hope, her eyes alighting upon Temur not just for his intellect, but also his capacity to kindle warmth within another. As they delved deeper into Eldoria's storied past and its verdant future, towed for a narrative that intertwined their spirits in a shared quest toward healing the city's wounds through nature's embrace, their bond became an anchor for others, drawing them to join his cause. The council chamber heard of Temur's mission among these children and elders alike. Whispers turned into earnest discourse as Eldoria found itself at a crossroads between the shadowed legacy of its past orbits around hope's radiant beacon or future, where might is measured not by strength but in kindness. Division fades from memory like dusk yields to night, as Temur's influence spread through Eldoria with roots as deep and intertwined as the very groves he had planted on hilltop altitudes across townships, each leafy sentinel a guardian of peace now standing tall, green flags heralding change in every directional breeze. The citizens began to embody his vision. Acts of compassion flowered spontaneously as once unbridgeable divides narrowed into chasms, filled with understanding and respect for one another's differences, rather than contention or society flourishing under the collective care that Temur had sown. On nightfall's crest, Eldoria, gathered beneath stars now brightened by shared resolve in a grand assembly on the hill, where it all began. The sea of faces bathed not just with moonlight, but also reflected the luminescence from within her people, transformed into an embodiment of Temur's dream that harmonies might against divisions. Decay was more than mere rhetoric. Their spirits had become a testament to his words, forging bonds stronger and purer through trials, weathered together. The council hall stood silent in the light of dawn as Eldoria penned new constitutional articles that mirrored Temur's ideology, first lines echoing across its grand halls like a promise from the past to an enlightened future, ensuring every citizen's voice would be heard and their welfare cherished in times of prosperity as well as despair. Eldoria was reborn not with fanfare as Eldoria prepared to enshrine Temur's ideology in a constitutional framework of unprecedented inclusivity and empathy. The citizens looked back upon how they had come full circle from warring factions on hilltop altitudes struggling for dominance amongst themselves to individuals firmly rooted within an interconnected social organism that thrived together. The Grand Assembly was as much a homage to their shared journey towards understanding and respectful coexistence, where each voice resonated with the power of experience. Victories overcoming divisions in mindset through Temur's guidance became narratives etched into Eldoria's heartbeat. The people no longer saw themselves as disparate entities, but rather a singular organism that functioned best when all parts worked symbiotically for one another, just like the trees and their roots on those once divided hills now supporting each other against strong winds of change or stormy times ahead. The council hall stood in serene anticipation as citizens from every walk of life approached to contribute directly into drafting articles that would be a living document or constitution reflective not only of Timur's wisdom but also the evolving spirit and aspirations of Eldoria's people themselves, who had come together through shared resolve. The first lines spoke volumes about their journey from fractured past to hopeful present. We are no longer individuals alone. We stand as a united community where every voice is not just heard but cherished, a society that celebrates our diversities and stands firm in the face of division. This constitutional drafting session would be Eldoria's Magna Carta, promising to protect each citizen's rights while reinforcing social bonds built on mutual respect. It was a declaration not just for this generation, but also an oath and legacy that the future generations of Eldorians could look back upon as their birthright, an era when they had chosen empathy over enmity, understanding above suspicion, where every soul contributed to uplifting others in ways previously unimagined. A newfound sense of purpose permeated through the council halls, silent halls, and spilled into Eldoria's streets as citizens began reinterpreting their roles within this societal paradigm, no longer mere inhabitants, but active stewards who had become agents for a greener, more compassionate world. Each person embraced that the essence of Timur's dream lay not in grandiose declarations made by one individual or even collective actions taken on behalf of all Eldorians. It was found within each act of kindness shared amongst neighbors and friends, echoing like gentle waves carving canyons through once divided hills. This night held more than just the birth of a constitution. It marked an era where education transcended beyond textbooks into lived experiences that taught Eldorians empathy's tangible power, society learning not from stories alone, but also by living them, as children and adults alike would grow to know their fellow citizens, hearts through shared meals under starlit skies. In the quiet hours of dawn, when first light kissed Eldoria awake with its warm embrace on this historic night, a sense that something truly transformative had taken root could be felt, or promise in every gusting wind and chirping birds, song carried by leaves rustling against one another like whispered hopes. As the sun crept higher across Eldoria's skyline with its rosy fingers of light, there was a palpable sense that this chapter could well be an enduring testament to what humanity might achieve when it chooses understanding over suspicion and empathy over division, or society not just existing, but thriving in the shared bonds of compassionate citizenship. The night's promise, like a seedling on fertile ground, would grow into an enduring legacy for Eldoria's future generations to cherish and uphold with pride, or beacon that even amidst life's trials or tempests of change, as the first light of day delicately brushed against every cobblestone street, it seemed almost divine that something transformative had indeed taken root within this nation, its warmth not just illuminating but awakening hopes and dreams for all to see in a shimmering dance upon dew-kissed grasses. As the sun climbed higher with rosy fingers, there was no denying that Eldoria had sown seeds of understanding over suspicion. Empathy instead of division now stood tall among its people's value as a society not merely existing, but flourishing in shared compassionate citizenship. The night's promise seemed to have germinated, taking root on fertile ground as Eldorians revelled under the canopy of stars that still hung low and tenderly over their heads like a protective embrace, a silent testimony for generations yet unborn who would learn this tale not from textbooks but through living memories. The promise, once sown in whispers carried on leaves rustling against one another amid the cool night breeze, had now ripened into an enduring legacy. It was a narrative that Eldoria's children and their progeny would cherish with pride, or beacon of what humanity might achieve when understanding supersedes suspicion, empathy overshadows division. As the sun reached its zenith in all its radiant glory, there was a palpable sense that this day could well become an enduring testament to Eldoria's evolution, or chapter of history marked with indelible significance as it unfolded before their very eyes under skies clear and hopeful. But the promise had more layers than mere transformation from within, for on this historic night a symphony arose not just in hearts, but across landscapes too far-flung to witness by daylight's watch alone, a harmonious chorus that reverberated through valleys and cascaded down mountainsides. The music of progress played out as Eldorians ventured forth, embarking on a journey both physical and metaphorical. They were the bearers of empathy's tangible powers if each footstep forward was another note in their anthem for unity that now echoed beyond city walls into countrysides untouched. And it wasn't just sounds, but stories too began to weave themselves through Eldorian communities. Tales of shared meals and laughter, tears shed under the comforting arms of neighbors who had become friends, or living history that was being written with every act of kindness exchanged on this historic night. In a world often blinded by division's harsh glare or suspicion's shadowy corners, Eldoria shone as if it wore the very embodiment of compassion, like an unwavering armor, a society thriving amidst shared bonds that transcended mere existence. As twilight approached with its gentle palette painting a tranquil transition from day to night, Eldorians continued their acts of kindness and solidarity. They were the architects building bridges across divides, not just through conversation, but also in deeds done under this auspicious sky that seemed almost celestial. And with each passing hour, as twilight deepened into night, it was clear that Eldoria had been forever changed by a single day's embrace of shared experiences and living stories. Their citizens were united not just in spirit, but also in purpose now more than ever before under the watchful eyes of stars. As darkness claimed full reign once again with its velvety touch, there was no doubt that Eldoria had journeyed far beyond mere coexistence. It stood as a testament to what societies might achieve when they choose understanding over suspicion and empathy over division, where the very act of living stories taught more about humanity than any textbook ever could. With night's promise now fully sown, Eldorians settled into their beds with hearts full of their legacy, not